Thank you for listening to this edition of the Sports Page here on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton Nix, and here with me, as always, Chris Robb. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Just another day of sports with playoffs going on, all kinds of stuff. A great sports weekend with
Yeah.
Kentucky Derby. Wish the Stars would have done a little bit better, but I mean, hey, what are you gonna do?
Yep. Yeah. It's been fun. I've been enjoying all the basketball. I've been, watching it pretty much every day. Just kind of, it's just great to, have games on and just, you have your pick of baseball, hockey, basketball. So it's a great time.
Yeah, and I bought UFC 288 the other
Oh,
night.
you did?
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous that you have to have ESPN Plus and
Yeah.
but I mean we
Did.
already had it because we watched Hulu and Disney Plus. We had the whole bundle, so we already had it. I don't know that it was worth it, but there were a lot more fights than I thought. I thought it was like four fights in the main event.
Hmm.
The main event started and it was like four or five fights before the main fight, so it was
Okay.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I usually catch the prelims. I think the last one I watched was the John Jones fight. That
yeah.
was the last UFC that I watched entirely. But yeah, I heard it was kind of an okay event. I didn't really care too much for who was fighting, but yeah, I heard it was a cool event.
Yeah, building up to it, there was a lot of chatter going back and forth between the guys, which you kind of want. I mean, you don't want you respect the athletes that good game, have good sportsmanship, but
Mhm.
it's fun to watch them go back and forth. But in this case, I don't know. It was almost like it wasn't being badass or tough guy talking. It was like kind of sound like little bitches to me. Going back and forth. And then after the fight, I mean, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's cool." And then what's his name comes
Probably,
into the ring, to the octagon,
oh,
and I
Sean
get
O'Malley.
yeah,
Yeah,
O'Malley and starts preview. I guess they're previewing for a September fight, and I'm like,
yeah,
this is getting dangerously close to
WWE.
wrestling. Yeah,
Yeah,
which
right.
they just merged WWE and UFC.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't believe a minute of it. The guy just jumps in there out of spite. It's all. I mean, the fight itself, yeah, I get that. I don't think that's you know clearly I don't think that's staged or whatever. Um, and not
And I don't think
even
that's going to be a good fight either. I think
yeah.
O'Malley
It's
he'll pretty much handle him
again.
because
I'm not
he
an
didn't even it wasn't even a great fight in general. It was okay. He didn't really
yeah. I
he
thought
didn't
some of the
dominate.
prelim fights were a little bit better, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, I I'm not an expert on UFC, UFC. Keep on say
Mhm.
UCF on UFC. That would be our own Peak One Sports Cole Rambo. You can listen to his show, the Bungalow Sports Show, and he also does the Fight Night for Peak One. But
Mhm.
I'm starting to try to get into it just so I can follow it a little bit better and not regret spending. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I don't even know if they have the pay per view every single week for UFC, but I'm going to try to keep up with it and get a little more into it. I think if I understand the storylines better, the same with WWE, I think I'd like it better. Although this is real or not real. I was told it's real. It's just predetermined fights in the
Mhm.
WWE. They really fight, but it's scripted.
Right.
But anyways, let's get to the main point of this show. This is going to be part two of sports curses. In part one, we talked a lot about the Red Sox, the Cubs, some soccer teams, the Lions curse,
Mhm.
and I promised the listeners we would get to the Madden curse. I just didn't want to shove it all into one part of one episode. So this episode is part two, and we're going to be talking about the Madden curse.
Yeah.
Um, Whether you believe in the Madden curse, there's a lot more. As much as we went back with those other things, like those other curses on how legitimate they are, this the Madden curse has a better track record if you believe in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now, for those who don't know what the Madden curse is, It's basically it's also known as the Madden cover Jinx. It's in conjecture with what athlete is on the cover of the Madden video game for that year, and more often than not, that player is either injured or has a pretty poor performance
Hmm.
compared to the previous year. Although, to be fair, to get on the cover of Madden, you have to have a pretty good year. So
Right.
it's hard to have a really great year and keep jumping on that. And then we'll kind of discuss whether we think the Madden curse is still there or still active. Is it broken? Um,
Hmm.
we'll go through this, and the curse holds true most of the time, and then it's kind of hit and miss. Excuse me, later on. Now, this all kind of gets started in 1999. The cover
Yes.
athlete was Garrison Hurst, San Francisco
Mhm.
49ers. Now, he obviously claimed the title, the first ever cover athlete. The games used to just have Madden on the front of them.
Yeah.
And this might be one of the worst injuries on the list, where he suffered a ridiculous, terrible, terrible, terrible broken ankle in the second round of the playoffs versus the Falcons. There were some surgery complications or post surgery complications, and it led to one of his foot bones dying. I don't even know what that
Oh,
means.
wow.
Uh, I'm not a
That's
medical person, medical terminology. I talked to my wife about this. She's gone through all that in nursing
yeah.
school and everything. But yeah, one of his foot bones died, and early diagnosis showed that he may never return to the field again. He missed 2 seasons while recovering from this injury. Kind of looks like a lot of Alex Smith type stuff happening here.
Yeah. That's. I didn't even know. I didn't know that much. I know he missed 2 seasons with a broken ankle. I didn't know it was that bad though. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how your bones die in your feet, or I
Man.
guess that's how you break them, but I
Yeah.
don't even know what that exactly means. I
Yeah.
know one time at a dentist, they told me I had a tooth that was dead, probably from trauma, but it had
Hmm.
no feeling, that they would put like a dry ice towards. So I don't know the terminology, but something like that, where on my regular teeth, they touch it and it would hurt. But when they put it on that tooth, it didn't hurt at all.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, is that
Okay.
giving you
Yeah.
problems? Yeah, we need to do a root canal just so it doesn't give you problems. But I guess it's the same kind of thing. Maybe there's not nerves. There aren't any
Yeah. Maybe
nerves in
like you
there.
won't.
No
Because you know
pain.
how like you put a cast on and your bone will regenerate, and
Exactly.
I guess it just won't just stops doing that.
Yeah, maybe they had to, the surgery, that's just had to get in depth with it.
Man,
Um,
that's wild.
so let's just go back and forth and say if the curse strike there. I'm gonna say yes. Is there any
Yeah,
doubt? Is this
it looked
stretching at
like
all?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think '99 is where it started. I don't remember it starting like me personally, because I mean I didn't really pay attention to that like growing up, but I remember like '04 and '06. I kind of was like, is there a curse? And then
Yeah.
'07 confirmed. So '04 was Mike Vick. Um,
Yes.
he shattered his leg that preseason
Yeah,
after he.
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna go through
Yeah,
these. Mine was like 03, 04. Those are the first Madden games I
yeah.
remember having one like on Nintendo 64 or something. It
Hmm.
had Madden on the cover. It was an old one, but when I really got into Madden, it was 03, 04. Marshall Falk, Michael Vick. That's when I started hearing more about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Then the very next year, 2000, Barry Sanders was the cover athlete. Um, this is neither from poor performance or an injury, but he's a cover athlete, and then he retires all of a sudden.
retired. Yeah. Hmm.
Um, it prompted EA Sports to organize another cover starring up and coming player Levens, who helped lead the Green Bay Packers to numerous playoff runs in recent seasons. And then after that, he failed to make a starting roster. Uh, Basically just backing up after that. So it's kind of a double whammy there. Sanders
Yeah,
retires, and then Levens pretty much just after that just doesn't do well again. Then
yeah,
again, but, I mean, he was the second choice, and I don't remember him being a great running back in the first place.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, me neither. Yeah, but
Maybe that's
he probably
just my
retired.
age.
He probably retired because he saw what Garrison Hurst what happened with him having the whole cancer
This is
thing.
the year that people started. There's some chatter like, "Hey, what's happened?" That basically in 2 years, three cover athletes, something happens, a
Right.
terrible injury, retires, and then all of a sudden, um, you're not playing well.
Hmm. Yeah.
2001, we had this is one of the more famous ones, Eddie George. Um, there was jokes around the Madden curse, and they said, "Well, he'll end the curse." He's
Hmm.
coming off one of the best years of his life. That season, he actually, with him on the cover, he actually was in the midst of a record breaking season. And then in the playoffs, uh, George threw a pass, bobbled it, or excuse me, he didn't throw a pass. He bobbled a pass. Um, late in the fourth quarter of a playoff game against the Ravens, and it led to an interception
Hmm.
and a touchdown that ended the Titans' season. Um, and then after that, Eddie George played four more seasons where he never ran for more than 1,200
Yeah.
yards again.
Injuries really started playing a factor at that point.
Yeah, he didn't get injured that year, but
Yeah.
he played that ended. We talked about a lot about these curses last week, about these weird plays that don't normally happen, and
Hmm.
that's kind of what happened here. And it's weird. We're talking about the first four players, all different scenarios happening.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Man.
the next year,
Who is next?
Dante
Culpepper?
Culpepper, yeah,
Culpepper. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, just a few months after being named the Madden NFL cover athlete, Culpepper suffered a knee injury during a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He missed the rest of the 2001 season, and following that, his performance deteriorated. Following seasons, the very first season after that, he threw 23 interceptions and only 18 touchdowns.
Hmm.
And I forgot to check these last ones. 2000, Barry Sanders and Dorsey Levens. Do we agree? Would we say the curse strike there or not?
Uh,
I think it's kind of a
I think,
reach, but
yeah,
it's double. It's both of them. So I'll say
you can
yes.
say that. You
Yeah,
can say
it's
that.
not
Yeah.
as devastating.
Yeah.
And then Eddie George, I'll throw a bone and say sure the curse strike, just because it was a weird play, and then it kind of was
Yeah.
all downhill for Eddie George then from there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then Culpepper, obviously he's injured. Um, Coming back from a knee injury back in 2002 was completely different than injuries nowadays. Knee injuries
Hmm.
now, when they can, basically restructure your entire knee like it never happened.
Right.
Um, that's probably a lot to do with his performance deteriorating. But I mean, you have a streak going on here now. Another injury, a knee injury in particular.
Hmm. Yeah. I
Um,
think the next one I'm reading it too. Like, yeah, you can yeah introduce it. I think
in
it struck.
2003,
Yeah. Yeah.
Marshall Faulk of the Saint
Mhm.
at the time St. Louis Rams. The season that season that unfolded after Falk appeared on the Madden NFL cover would prove to be the
Yeah.
beginning of the decline for one of the NFL's most prolific running backs. It'd be the first season where he was unable to rush for more than 1,000 yards. The totals continued to decline in subsequent seasons. He even missed the entire 2006 season due to a surgery on his knee and never returned to the league. Now, what we know about how running backs are deteriorating nowadays, it's not a huge surprise. I mean, back then, I don't remember what year he entered the league, but he wasn't an old running back, maybe
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
today's standards.
Yeah.
Um,
He probably was. I think that might have been. He probably be like what Zeke is. I think
yeah,
it's like that type of like how many years he's been in the league because he wasn't in that long before before all this started happening. So
yeah. No, no injury in general here till later on, but yeah, the him being on the cover it was just a dramatic downfall.
I don't even remember him retiring because he was so great. I was like a bandwagon Rams fan whenever the greatest show on turf and everything. I used to play with him on Madden, and I don't even remember him like retiring at all. Yeah, he just kind of just I guess just kind
Yeah,
of
fizzled
phased
out.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Um,
crazy.
2004, another famous year that when you say Madden curse, people think of was Michael Vick
Hmm.
when he still played for the Atlanta Falcons. Just a short time after it was announced that Vick would be the cover athlete for Madden NFL 2004, Vick fractured his right fibula during a preseason game. The injury forced him to miss 11 games of the first 11 games of the season, which is
Hmm.
surprising because the fibula injury is pretty serious.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's well for sure. The curse happened right there.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, for sure, and,
and
and
then
we
he's
haven't.
kind of, his career kind of just he had the stuff we won't talk about, but he had all that stuff happen right after
Yeah,
that.
I
So,
mean, he had a bit of a resurgence going into
yeah, he
Philadelphia,
was,
but yeah,
yeah,
it just went down from there.
because
Um,
at that point he was on pace to make like 100 million, and that was like it was it just wasn't happening in the league. They weren't paying quarterbacks like that. And I remember it like clear as day. They were like, "Yeah, he's will he be the first quarterback to make like 100 million or whatever?" It was like a record breaking number. He was about to be
yeah,
the highest paid QB, and all that stuff happened. So that's crazy.
and don't get it wrong, we're not blaming a curse for the fact that he did some terrible things
Right? Yeah.
that ended up in him going to prison, but
Hmm.
uh, a terrible injury, down a tailspin on his career and going to prison. That's a big deal. You know, when you're talking about curses, that's a lot to happen. This next one, 2005, is kind of. I mean, this is the part where we start wondering if they're reaching here. But
Hmm.
Ray Lewis, the Ravens, the he had a pretty decent season. He didn't have a terrible season, obviously down from his previous season, but he didn't. He the linebacker failed to record a single interception in 2004, the first time that had ever happened in his career. The Ravens also failed to make the playoffs for the first time in several years. And then the next season, he tore his right hamstring,
Yeah.
ending his season. I was gonna say, when you start extending it, say, oh, he got injured the next year, then you're kind of reaching. I think the
Yeah.
main curse of this was 2005 might have been the worst Madden game.
Oh, you think?
Personally, I didn't like it. I don't know. That was the first year there was a ton of
Man,
changes to
yeah,
gameplay.
they introduced the hit stick that year, and
Oh, I like the
I
hit stick
loved
now.
it. I
Yeah, I
love
love it now. That you want to
it.
fumble,
I love
almost a
that game.
guaranteed fumble. Open field,
Yeah,
use the hit stick.
and he was
Maybe it had to do with EA Sport. I mean, not EA Sport. NFL Live coming out that year in
oh
2005.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
that
yeah.
that actually was a better Madden. I mean, a better football
Yeah.
game
The
to me.
NFL 2Ks, like the
2K,
2K.
that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
not live. Well, 2K Live, is it live?
yeah, yeah. NBA Live.
NBA
They
Live
had,
is okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2K outdid them there.
Hmm.
Let's
Yeah.
see. Moving right along. 2006, Donovan McNabb. He was on track for a huge year that year when his season was derailed by a groin injury that sent him the IR list for the remainder of the season. He never recovered that season, and then
Hmm.
uh, the following season, in Week 11, he tore his ACL and meniscus in his right knee, and was once again sidelined for the remainder of the season. And then the rest of his time in the NFL would be marked by inconsistent performances, turmoil on and off the field, and then the end of his football career in 2011. Let's not forget his terrible time in a Redskins uniform.
I forgot about that. Yeah. I forgot all about that. Yeah, he never went back to the Pro Bowl. He was feuding with To, so that like they kind of, I guess that's all kind of looped into it to the curse. But I say it struck there for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean he was just off. Was that the next? Because '06 would have been the 2005. Was that the year after they lost to the Patriots in the Super
Yeah,
Bowl?
I think it is.
Is
Yeah,
at least 1 year, maybe 2 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a definite. I mean, a couple of injuries, and then you just start going downhill from there. 2007, Sean Alexander. Um, This seemingly indicated that the effect of the Madden curse might be indirect proportion to your accomplishments. Alexander's 2006 season was derailed by a broken foot in week 3, just a few months after being named the Madden NFL covered athlete. The
Mhm.
season would become his first without 1,000 yards rushing since becoming the starter for the Seahawks. Um,
I think this
that
is the game.
abbreviate. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is the game that confirmed it for me. Uh, Whenever he was just because he was the best running back, he won MVP that year, correct? The year before, and
Yeah,
they went to the Super Bowl, and then he was just out the league, and I don't even remember him like it was just so abrupt,
yeah.
and
I
I was like,
remember
oh,
he's like your number one draft pick in fantasy football.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and again, we're talking about going from an MVP. Usually, if you win an MVP or you do really good, you make the Super Bowl. You are going to be a cover athlete, and it's hard to capitalize on that. But we're talking about a broken foot here. The next season, he suffered a fractured
mhm,
wrist, sprained knee, and sprained ankle. And then the next season, he was cut from the roster.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
That's
definitely a hit there.
that's tough, yeah, because you're at the top of the mountain, and all of a sudden you just out the league. That's for sure confirmed it for me because I was like, where is Sean Alexander? Did he play? Was he with the Redskins for a little bit, or uh, I can't remember
I don't even
where he
remember.
after that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that
And that's an
that's a lot.
MVP we're talking about.
Uh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Redskins here. Yeah.
Next one, 2008, we have Vince Young. Um,
Um,
well, Vince Young and Luis Costello of the San Diego Chargers, but before either Young or Castillo was named the cover athletes, San Diego running back LaDainian Tomlinson was approached, and this is where the Madden curse starts getting real,
hmm
or gains popularity, um, because after after some Chargers fans were really vocal and initiated a campaign to keep him off the cover due to their fear of the Madden curse, Tomlinson declined the offer.
I understand. I
It takes
understand.
a big deal because that's a moneymaker right there. I don't know how much you make from that, but
hmm
you're talking about status, you're talking about your name, you're talking about
Yeah.
being on the Sports Page podcast.
hmm
13 years, six. Oh my gosh, I'm old. How old is this?
Man, that's
15,
a long
15 years later.
years ago. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he declined to be on there. So after scoffing at the Madden curse when he made the announcement on late night television, Young had a slow start to 2007 season. He injured his quadricep in week 6. He would miss the following week's game, the first time he ever missed a game due to injury. We look back at his rookie year. He had I don't even remember if he won Rookie of the Year, but he had a great rookie season,
Um,
and
yeah,
It
went to the
looked like he was
playoffs.
going to be the future franchise quarterback for the Titans.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he won, but yeah, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year,
There you
and
go.
he went to two. Well, he did go to two Pro Bowls, but
I think here
it
in the
was
2008 season, 2007 2008 season would have been his third year, maybe second year.
yeah.
But after he injured his quadricep, he would return later in that season, only to re-injure himself in the final game of the season, opening the door for backup Kerry Collins to take the reins.
Mhm.
Young's transition to a backup role was cemented the following season when he injured his knee in the first game of that year, and Collins was named the starting quarterback for the remainder of the season. Proving that even alternate versions of the game are subject to the Madden curse. Castillo missed a significant portion of the 2007 season several months after being named Madden NFL cover athlete. Sidelined by knee injury, he only played 10 games that season. I guess that's the first year they did alternate covers, because I definitely had this game, and Vince Young was on the cover, the one I had.
Yeah, I have been shown too.
Yeah. Um,
Who was the other one you said?
Luis Castillo.
Oh
I think I
yeah,
said Castillo at
I
first.
was
I'm
a
pretty sure it's
huge yeah.
Castillo. San
I
Diego
only
Chargers.
I only got it because Vince Young was on the cover, and I was
Yeah.
like the biggest
Yeah,
Texas fan at
exactly.
that point. Yeah, it just made sense for me. But that's It's kind of crazy how he, kind of just fizzled out. Because at one point I thought, because he had went to two the playoffs, won a playoff game, went to two Pro Bowls. I was like, oh, but that's just how it goes.
So the next one, there's a lot going on here. In 2009, the cover athlete was Brett Favre. Not long after he was announced as the cover athlete, he retired, or at least the first time. He
Mhm.
eventually signed with the New York Jets, and he had a decent season, but he had a lot of off the field issues. And then
Yeah.
he eventually injured his right shoulder late in the season.
Hmm.
And then that obviously plagued him for the rest of his career before he retired again in 2011. Um, yeah,
I would chalk that one up to the
I
curse. I think he was just old at that point.
yeah, he's old. Another retirement, just like Barry Sanders. But I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't. The Packers were ready to move on from him anyways. They already had Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Rogers, yeah.
Um, but yeah, on here we have the first two cover athlete with Larry Fitzgerald and Troy Polamalu on Madden NFL 10.
Hmm. That was a good game.
Fitzgerald is one of the first clear-cut examples of the Madden curse generally missing its mark. Uh, the receiver set a lot of personal records throughout the 2009 season.
Hmm.
I had a slight letdown in 2010 due to the exit of longtime quarterback Kurt Warner, but still managed to put up impressive numbers both seasons. If there's any effect on the curse, it was unable. Fitzgerald was unable to play in the 2010 Pro Bowl due to a rib injury, if you want to count that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd be a reach. Yeah.
yeah. And Troy Polamalu seemed to take full brunt of the Madden curse. The defensive all star sprained his medial collateral ligament. Oh, MCL.
MCL.
Yeah. I'm just reading here and it jumps out MCL. I don't even know why
That's
they do
funny.
that. I didn't know that's what MCL stood for. Yeah, he sprained his MCL in the first half of week one of the 2009 season. Was
Yeah.
forced to miss the next four games. Played three more games later that year, only to get in his PCL this time. It didn't say PCL, but I saw posterior cruciate
Hmm.
ligament, and I did the
Yeah.
math myself. PCL in November. The Steelers would miss the playoffs that year, finishing 9-7.
Yeah.
So at least one of them
One of them
got
got it.
hit with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely remember that. He only played, I think he played 5 games that year. So yeah, he definitely took full brunt of it.
Yeah.
That's it.
2010, Drew Brees, or 2010 season, I guess Madden NFL 11.
11, yeah.
Uh, he wasn't a terrible disappointment overall, but he had one of his worst seasons. He threw twice as many interceptions as previous years. Um, man, that's odd. It seems like Dak might have been the Madden cover athlete last year. There were a lot of
Yeah.
interceptions.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
okay. He threw twice as many interceptions the previous years, and then the general lackluster performance led to a playoff defeat in the first week of the postseason. The loss was especially disappointing given that New Orleans lost to Seattle, the first team in NFL history to make it into the playoffs with a losing record. Now
Yeah.
that, although it's not seen that much, we're talking injuries. I
Hmm.
think that's exactly what curses are all about, where you
Yeah.
lose for the first time in history, lose to a team that had a losing record in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That
And they were they were like, it says they were the biggest betting favorite in playoff history at the time.
yeah,
To lose to a 7-9 team. That's insane.
yeah. The research I've done on these curses, although not as much as I probably should have, that tells me that that's exactly what curses are all about. Little
Mhm.
weird stats like
Things
that.
that never have ever happened before. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Drew Brees throwing more interceptions than he's normally used to because he was a very accurate
Hmm.
passer. Let's see. The next cover athlete, Madden NFL 12, was Peyton Hillis of the Cleveland Browns. Um, although he Hillis's troubles began well before the 2011 season. He had a heated contract dispute leading to trouble in Cleveland. Then physical troubles, including a bout with strep throat and injured hamstring. Um, he missed some games in that season, failing to get in sync with the team. He ended up playing only 10 games that season, accumulating just 587 rushing yards and a significant letdown from his highlight-filled 2010 performance. The Browns declined to re-sign him the following season after he left the team as a free agent. I can get behind that as saying that was the curse.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
of self-inflicted stuff going on there. Seemed like it was brewing well before that, but when you have one of your worst seasons and you don't get re-signed the next year,
yeah. Right after
that
the cover,
seems,
yeah,
something. I don't know if you um curses are a weird thing that they're not a tangible thing that you can really uh, contemplate, I guess.
hmm
Because it's all up in the air about if they're real or not. So there's not really a mold you can fit them in. I mean, people have their own rules in their head, I guess.
hmm
But there's not a lot there that you can say other than he didn't suffer a season-ending injury.
yeah, yeah.
This is the first one where I think we can say definitively that the Madden curse did not strike here. And Madden NFL 2013, Calvin Johnson was the cover athlete. Um, his 2012 season was the best overall
hmm
uh, by any receiver. He had 1,964 yards receiving,
Yeah,
um, which is a record. He
right.
beat Jerry Rice's record.
Yeah,
Um,
that says something.
he also set or tied records for 100-yard games and receptions during 2012, proving that not even an appearance on the cover of Madden can stop him from being one of the best wide receivers ever to play the game.
Yeah,
And a lot of people started saying, "Hey, it's broken. He broke the curse. He had an outstanding season." And then Adrian Peterson gets on the cover.
hmm
He looked
and
good. He had a 78-yard rushing touchdown on the first carry of the season. And he struggled in the first half of the season with nagging foot injury. After that, he ended up playing only 14 games, and the team's record dropped down to 5-10-1 after he was declared done for the season in December due to the same aggravated foot injury.
mm,
Um, that was a weird year for Adrian Peterson. He seems like one of the running backs that didn't age because he was an effective running back for what,
yeah,
10 years.
yeah. He was there for yeah. He was great for a long time. When he came into the league, uh,
Let's see, that was 2014. Was
7,
like, yeah, 07, 08, something like
okay,
that.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, he was good for a while. And then you think the curse got him right there?
Um, I would say so. Just because I mean, if you want to believe in curses, we're just having fun here.
Right.
There's always got to be something that's like, hey, that's odd. And the fact that he started the season with a 78-yard rushing touchdown on the first carry of the game, and then boom, had a bad season.
Yes.
I think that's something you could say. I mean, he clearly didn't break the curse.
Yeah.
Um, the next year, Richard Sherman, Madden NFL 15. He had another great performance that year. He led the Seahawks defense, helping Seattle return to the Super Bowl.
hmm
Um, he wasn't involved in that Super Bowl, but Russell Wilson did throw that odd interception when you just
To
did,
Malcolm Butler. Yeah.
if man, just hand the ball off. That's all you had to do.
Yeah.
If Russell Wilson was on the cover, I would say maybe because of that weird play,
That's
but
yeah,
yeah, maybe the
definitely.
Seahawks were cursed more than anything.
hmm
But yeah, he had a great year. Um, After that, of course, the Seahawks announced Sherman might need Tommy John surgery, which is
The
weird
elbow.
for
Yeah,
yeah,
the
weird
football.
for for a cornerback.
Yeah.
Because he had a torn ligament in his left elbow, but of course uh he opted out of that just to heal naturally rather than get surgery. And he was available for the next year. So I would say we're seeing a trend here. It did not strike that year.
Mhm.
Madden NFL 16, Odell Beckham Jr. He had some on-field anger issues, and he was suspended for a game.
Mhm.
But other than that, he had 1,450 yards receiving, 13 touchdowns, um, better than the previous year, and he made a second consecutive Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say no.
Good year. Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
good year.
that's not. Madden NFL 17, Rob Gronkowski. Gronk missed the first two games of that season with a lingering hamstring injury. He
Mhm.
appeared in sparingly in weeks 3 and 4, but didn't start again until week 5 against the Browns. He did have 109 yards in that game. Um, he's productive for the next few games, but in week 11 against Seattle, he suffered a pulmonary contusion after being on the receiving end of a huge hit by Earl Thomas. I remember that hit.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was kept out of the next week against San Francisco. He came back to starting lineup the following week against the Jets, but left the game early um, before he's even caught a single pass with a back injury. Gronk underwent surgery to repair a herniated disc.
Yeah.
Um, maybe there's a lot of different nagging injuries, but this was the part of Gronk's career where he started. Obviously the back issues started to come up.
Yeah.
Um,
And technically, he did win the Super Bowl that year. Um, Still though, like with the injuries and everything, only starting 6 games. Yeah, that's I would say it was kind of there a little bit.
Yeah, I think we all always want to say it's hard to say, but with curses we're like, well, there's got to be a terrible injury or something like that. But um, not a whole lot here, but just a bunch of different nagging injuries where he missed a few
Right.
games.
Right.
The next year, Tom Brady, he's kind of the one that they say ended the curse because he's on here a couple of times.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, if there's any player that could defy the Madden curse, it's Tom Brady on the cover of
Right.
Madden NFL 18. He he did a lot more than avoid injury or sputtering
Hmm.
stats. He had one of the best seasons of his career. It's easy to say, okay, yeah, there's a curse. His numbers declined. I mean, he was 40. You probably saw it coming. But instead, he had more than 4,500 yards. He had 32 passing touchdowns, and he led Patriots to an AFC best 13-3 record and won an MVP.
Yeah.
He also, I mean, they did lose in the Super Bowl that year to the Eagles,
He do look
but
good.
he threw 505 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the losing to the backup quarterback might be the
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
I can see that.
mhm,
If we're talking about like go back to the Red Sox curse,
like the weird, yeah, like the
they
weird that one.
didn't, yeah, they didn't necessarily just suck and have weird injuries all the time.
Hmm.
They would make it to World Series and they just have weird things happen.
Hmm.
That's why
Yeah.
curses aren't just straightforward. I'm telling you, man.
Right.
Um, Madden NFL 19, Antonio Brown. Um, he had a good year. 104 catches, 1,200, almost 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns.
Hmm.
But that was kind of the downfall of Antonio Brown. Mentally,
Yeah.
some physically. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go off and read everything on here, but there's a lot going on here with off the field stuff. A preferred helmet issue when he played
Oh, when he
in
went to Oakland.
Oakland.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had issues with domestic domestic issues with his, I don't know, girlfriend or wife, baby mom. I don't know exactly what her title was. It doesn't say here.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then obviously he thought, you thought he had a resurgence in Tampa. with Tom Brady, and then that just kind of ended weird. It wasn't that he fizzled off; it's like he went
Yeah,
out in
it just went
spectacular
off.
fashion, nearly stripping on the field and just running off.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's strange.
yeah, that's strange. You could say,
Yeah.
um, going to Madden 20, Patrick Mahomes, it kind of strikes and then not. I mean, that
Oh, he
year the
had.
Chiefs announced that he had a knee injury in
I was about to say
October.
yeah, he missed. Yeah, he missed a
Yeah,
couple games too.
it wasn't as serious as they thought. He would come back. They finished 12-4, and would go on to win the Super Bowl that year. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when people thought the curse is over. He won the Super Bowl. He was injured, but he won. The next year, you want to go see, hey, did we break the curse? We got Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson. Um, I wouldn't say. I mean, he
Yeah,
never
decline.
he didn't get hurt. I
Yeah, it was
guess
just a decline. Yeah.
he declined a little bit, but then again, it goes to the argument. We could talk about this in a different episode. With he didn't have any weapons up
Yeah.
until I
Yeah.
guess this year. Now they finally started getting him some weapons.
Yeah. True.
Who's he going to throw to? But I'd say, yeah, it didn't hit that time. He didn't have a great year, but pretty nonchalant there. It just, eh.
Kind of an
There
average
was,
year.
yeah, there wasn't a spot where you're like, oh man, he did terrible. He like with Drew Brees throwing more, nearly twice as many interceptions or
Hmm.
something weird happening. It was just kind of blah year. And then Madden NFL 22, they had Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes on the cover.
Hmm.
And they both made the Super Bowl. Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, if you want to say the curse hit him, he didn't get injured, but a lot of Chiefs offensive line
Yeah, his
did,
line. Yeah, that was hurt. Yeah.
and he was running for his life in the Super Bowl. He couldn't,
Yeah.
I couldn't really get anything rolling. Uh, but then again, we're talking about the cover athletes. Not, I mean, we can go down this whole list, and I'm sure every single player has a teammate that was injured that helps them. So
Yeah,
that
probably.
that's a pretty much that's a reach. And now lots of people are saying the curse is finally broken now for sure with NFL Madden NFL 23 with John Madden on the cover. John Madden being on the cover, obviously the first year after he passed away.
Hmm.
Um, that's weird that people will just come out and say the curse is broken. Again, I talked about there's not really any rules to this. Um, again, I guess if you use Google, you could
Yeah.
probably find rules to the Madden curse all listed out for you. But yeah,
Probably.
somebody knows. They said the curse is broken. I guess we'll see in Madden 24 who the cover athlete will be. I don't even know if it's been announced. I don't know when it's announced.
Yeah,
Generally.
I think they're about to here pretty soon. I know it's usually kind of short, like shortly after the draft. They do it because the game comes out in August, so it should be sometime in the next month or two. So we'll see.
Yeah, and maybe there would have been a better time to do this episode then, but we'll jump into it. But we'd done that other
Yeah,
episode, and some people were messaging me saying they wanted us to do the Madden curse
for
this
sure.
very next week. So there you go. What does everybody think of the Madden curse? Let us know. Clearly, there's something to it, whether you believe curses or not. Uh, it's a lot of hit and miss nowadays. Whether you think curses are broken, maybe curses just don't hit some people like they do others. I don't know. Tell us what you think. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sports Page. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms at Sports Page Radio and at Peak One Sports. I'm Ashton Nix, and that's Chris Robb.
All right, see you guys.
See everybody later.